right, cheers to the D2 community. Cheers, Drew.
Cheers.
So Drew and I are nibbling on a little bit of there's a lot left, of the bourbon from last week on our bourbon tasting. That was so much fun, Drew, having Vince. Stay tuned. We've had a lot of requests, so I foresee another bourbon tasting and maybe even a Scotch tasting in our near future.
Wow.
So excited about that. And we've got our special guest, Johnny the Griller Randall, who's going to give us an excellent lesson and class on grilling. However, before we get started, we just want to do a quick few things on business. And wanted to bring Drew in to give you a couple updates. So, Drew, what's changed since last week?
Well, we've been competing very, very aggressively and successfully against an old friend of ours. You guys may know the firm. It rhymes with Ted Bones.
Ed Jones.
Yes, old Ed Jones. So if you've been getting the information coming in via investment news or some of the other industry things, you know they are having problems with attrition last year, and it's only gotten worse. Things that we're really focused on are going right at the core issues that they're dealing with. Is one, they don't have any flexibility on what they do. Their marketing was a real kind of face-to-face door knocking, which has been prohibited. Their portfolios have kind of been infested with a lot of proprietary products, which I'm sure you guys have heard that in your careers on this call. It's the Bridge Builder Fund that they're using in their version of kind of SBS or active portfolios. Service has dropped off because they had no ability to work virtually with their assistants. And pay has been frozen, and they are not opening up any type of overtime allotment for their assistants and staff. And this obviously has not allowed them to service clients like they should. And their outreach to clients utilizing any type of technology has been severely hamstrung. So this provides a fantastic backdrop and opportunity for what we do. And we call it being fast, flexible, advice-centered, service-centric, and transparent. And so that has proven to be very beneficial for us here in Owensboro. What we've done is we're taking a two-pronged approach. One is looking at if there's any reformable, Ed Jones advisors that may want to come over to join us.
The save list?
Yeah, the save list.
The save list.
So if you know who you compete with in your community, people you may want on your team, now is a great time to start making inquiries to see how they're doing in this.
And by the way, we had fun doing this. We pulled up the list, and we're telling some stories on why this certain person and an expletive would never, ever join us. And then we had probably maybe 4 that we thought out of the, 12 or 13 that are in our area. So we thought we'd be credible guys.
Yes, and to kind of paint a mental picture, if you can recall the scene in Animal House when they're doing the slideshow of potential fraternity members, there were some beer cans thrown.
Yes, there was.
So that's track one is identify this as a EAR recruit opportunity. Number one. Number two is out of your prospect list. What clients do you know that maybe used to be your clients that went to Jones? What clients that you would like to have are working at Jones, and begin marketing to them in things that they know that they're not getting. More service, more ways to work virtually with their advisor, being you, more flexibility in how they work, and above and beyond everything, providing advice on where they are. The third track here is we have some former Jones employees. They've worked out great. Think about those people who you know how stressful it's got to be a CSR there when you are fighting with one hand tied behind your back. You're not going to be paid any additional for working more. that's got to be very disheartening.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of times people always say, why do the Patriots take a guy off the scrap heap and he becomes a successful player for them? It's all about culture. You could go from like the Dolphins or the Jets to the Patriots and become a winner immediately. You can get employees from Ed Jones, bring them over to your team at Ameriprise and make them a winner the same manner.
Right, because the way we treat people, our culture, our way of doing business. So a huge opportunity there. I know even in today's meeting, you told me, I think, Brian on our team actually secured a prospect from Ed Jones.
Yeah, and these are all seven-figure accounts.
Yeah, and then you reached out to a former client, and he said he'd just been praying about it, and then boom, you called. So that's a good signal there.
Yeah, and it's to dust off the old Carnac the Magnificent. For those on the call old enough to admit watching Johnny Carson, in this folder, a Hartford annuity, a Lincoln annuity, long-dated municipal bonds, and a bunch of American funds. It's an Edward Jones statement.
It's an Edward Jones statement.
Guys, we know what they do. They've got no flexibility, imagination, no ability to tailor solutions specifically for each client. It should be like shooting fish in a barrel. And remember, people say, well, how can Edward Jones have such great clients? Many times they just don't know what they've been missing.
Right.
Yes. So
look, we'll send a recap out on that. And I would highly recommend you come back and listen to this segment as you're working with Ed Jones. Drew just gave you the ammunition to go looking through who at Ed Jones you could be working with, especially on the retail side. But those same points, I think, follow through and have to be frustrating, I think, for some of those advisors as well, when they've been given a limited playbook. And in a situation where when we're out openly just hammering the phone, setting up WebExes, doing after-the-market conference calls, and they can't do something like that right now.
Yeah, it's got to be incredibly frustrating for them. They've recruited a lot of novice advisors. This will shake a lot of them out of business.
Yep.
I think last year they lost almost 10% of their advisor force, which is an unbelievably large number. Here's the thing. Once they get past 3 years, even though they're not in protocol, they're worth talking to. So if you look at how Edward Jones is responding, it's a little bit desperate. So, for sure, get the clients, look at the staff, and remember this, guys. A lot of times the staff may have a better relationship with the people than the advisors.
Yeah. All right, so we wanted to bring that to you tonight. One quick marketing tip there on who we can go after and grow our business. But let's turn it over to Johnny Randall. Let's see the setup, John. What do you got going on your backyard tonight?
So this is my setup every night. You'll find me out here every weekend. This is one of my favorite hobbies, to grill, cook some things over fire for my family to enjoy. And, I think this one is timely. This is a great event to do with your clients. We've got Memorial Day coming up. We've got 4th of July coming up. These are like the Super Bowl weekends of grilling. So what a great time to get people prepped for Memorial Day. You've got time before 4th of July to pull off something like this. So I became really passionate about cooking and grilling way back. It started for me when I lived in New York. This show by Bobby Flay came out, where me and Kathleen lived. We could see a little bit of the New York skyline where we lived. And Bobby Flay had this show in Queens, and basically on his deck, and really you could really see the New York City timeline. And it started very small, literally one grill on his deck, and his show kind of evolved. And around the time that we moved to North Carolina, which is 16 years ago now, he all of a sudden had this big setup in a big yard. He had like 6 or 7 different kinds of grills and cooked a lot of different things. And it was really fascinating to me. The food looked really good. It looked pretty easy to do. So I sort of went down there. My family jokes, they call me Johnny Flay, my parents, my brother, sister. But
Johnny Flay.
He's really a celebrity chef. When you really dig into, I think, who are the real pros, there was this other show called Primal Grill. I think it was a PBS show I don't remember the guy's name who did it. He was really technical and pretty serious. And man, I learned a lot doing that show with lots of different kinds of grills, lots of different types of meats and vegetables, all kinds of food was being cooked on there. So I learned a lot and started to go further down the rabbit hole, discovered this guy, Aaron Franklin, which some of us got to experience Franklin Barbecue back in Austin, back in November. Yeah. Now, this guy, Aaron, this guy is serious. He's meticulous about his process, but it's very simple. I like what he does. It's very small number of ingredients, very simple process. He's just meticulous about the details. A lot of learning from him. And if you want to check out the ultimate pro of all time, it's this guy, Francis Mallmann. It's spelled Mallmann. This guy's from Argentina, which is where Sabrina's from. So a lot of you in Florida, your FVP, that's where she's from. This guy was a French trained chef, but he cooks everything over open fires. He's got all these different techniques to cook basically anything over real fires. And I tell you, that really inspired me. I learned a lot from him. So I try and duplicate these things, mess around, try them at home. When we did a test run for this, Ben asked, hey, what's your favorite kind of grill? What do you use? I have 4 kinds of grills here. I tried to do some easier ones that would be more duplicatable. So your good old gas grill is very common. A lot of people have it. Your charcoal grill. Gosh, I remember my dad having one of these things in the 70s, 80s. Didn't have this table, but the old Weber kettle grill, they still work awesome. So I'm going to do a little bit of both with these basic ones. Maybe one day we do a master class in like the smoker and the egg and those kind of things. But these are pretty basic, pretty common, I guess, grills that you might have at home, that your clients would have at home. So I keep it simple so that they can copy the same things. They can do the same kind of cooking that you're going to do. So I've got a great trick when it comes to the gas grill. I tell the gas grill is not my favorite flavor, although it's pretty darn easy to turn it on. I mean, the temperature control is fabulous. It's almost like cooking in an oven, but there's not really much flavor there, and I don't enjoy that gas flavor. So I developed a trick years ago. You can put a little piece of wood direct on the grate, and it'll start to smoke a little bit and produce a little bit of wood flavor. So I just put them right on. You can get these wet and put them on. You can also get like a little smoker box and soak some wood chips, put them in there. Or heck, you could just do it in some foil and put it on. But you do a little bit of that. It really adds an awesome flavor, that simple little trick, to anything you're cooking on the gas grill. So I highly recommend that little trick. It'll make anything you cook in the simple grill really taste more like a wood fire real cooking. So on the charcoal grill, I detest and despise the match-light charcoal, anything that has anything to do with lighter fluid. Your whole food tastes like lighter fluid when you cook on that stuff. So I really recommend hard lump charcoal. I left my bag that I use. I like this brand here. It's more like real wood. I tell you, my ultimate favorite, if I had time, is to cook down a real fire. I'll cook a real wood fire on this. I'll move the coals to one side as things burn down, and probably 3 or 4 hours later, you've got the ultimate charcoal of all time, and you get a real nice campfire flavor. But it's a great way to, I think, take just something regular to the next level. All this stuff is readily available. None of it's hard to find. You get it at your local, Lowe's or Home Depot. A lot of this stuff's on Amazon too. It's very easy to order up. So I've got a series of things I'm going to take us through some low temperature things that I started early this morning that I've been cooking all day. I've got some more medium heat type things, and then I've got some higher type heat kind of foods that you can easily try. So
Hey, John, why don't let's see if we got any questions so far. Anybody any questions about, what John has talked about so far around where he shaped kind of his passion for cooking, who he's learned from, some of the grills, the tools? Anybody got a question for John?
cooking.
What kind
We've got one right here, John. It says, what kind of wood and type of wood for gas grill, John? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I really like hickory. You can find mesquite, applewood. You can find some different flavors. I'm traditional. I love hickory. I think it smells fantastic. Again, something you can get at a Lowe's. Even a grocery store has some of this stuff you can easily find around. But I highly recommend just putting on a little piece of hickory just like that. You can buy some bigger chunks. You can buy little pieces, but that one works really great.
All right. Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Jeff, for those questions. All right, John, what's next here?
All right, so I'll show you some awesome slow cook stuff. So I put on 2 different types of ribs this morning on the grill before I went in and talked to a lot of you today. So I started some baby back ribs. They've been literally cooking for, about 8 or 9 hours. They've been cooking. And I tell you, I learned a lot about cooking ribs from Aaron Franklin. I think, low and slow is key. They probably need to be at a lower temperature for longer than you think is ideal. Pork's a funny meat. It gets really hard and nasty when it's overcooked, so you got to be really careful with pork. I find that doing this at about 200 degrees is a nice sweet spot on the grill. A lot of people say, hey, do lower than that. Some will say 225, some will say 275. But if I'm doing an all-day cook like this, that time frame works pretty well. And I tell you, this stuff just falls right off the bone. I keep it really simple. I literally did salt, pepper, paprika. Where I grew up in Maryland, there's a stuff called Old Bay seasoning. You may have heard it. It's really all it is, salt, pepper, paprika. And that's kind of my common barbecue seasoning. So I loaded that up on these early on. And the best thing I learned, this is the number one tip if you're cooking ribs, is you want it to be open to some of that smoke flavor for about the first hour. Because once food gets to 75 degrees, it's not going to take in any smoke flavor. Now, if you want to use a smoker for hours and get kind of that unique texture, that's cool. But I just leave them uncovered for an hour. And then you saw I wrap them up in foil. I wrap them really tight. And I put a little bit of barbecue sauce in the bottom. This brand right here, Lily's, is my favorite barbecue sauce right now. I put a little bit in the bottom, and I put the ribs in upside down. So the meat side down. So the meat part is getting all the juices, the barbecue sauce, the flavor. And I tell you, these things just fall right apart. They'll come right off the bone and be some of the best ribs you ever have. Look at this piece right here. Bone came completely clean off from cooking for so long. Really, really awesome stuff. I did the same with some beef. Beef ribs, gosh, you get like a Flintstone level rib in there, short ribs or beef ribs. They cook up great. And same thing, the meat just sitting upside down and all those juices. I mean, look at this, just perfect, juicy, beautiful meat. With that one, with beef, I like to season with this guy right here. Worcestershire sauce is a great marinade. But yeah, I know the Cheneys like that. I marinated overnight. I crushed a little garlic just in my fingers. Put some rosemary in there. I like salting right before you cook. I think is important. So I put a little pepper in the marinade. I'll talk a little bit more about salting and seasoning as we go here. But these two are some of the best low and slow cooking, some of the greatest things that I think you guys can easily copy here. So easy, slow cooking, again, set and forget temperatures. Look, you could cheat and do this in the oven, but I think with a gas grill, you set it low, it really works out well. Now, I tell you what I do on my gas grill, I cheat a little bit. I created this indirect heat zone. So you see, I've got like a bunch of foil built in here. It looks like a 60s NASA device, but I've really just put some heavy-duty aluminum foil to kind of separate the heat so this zone doesn't get hot. So that's my indirect cooking, which is what you would want to cook, like these ribs, something low and slow that's going to go for many, many hours. Great trick. You can also rest your meats after you cook them. They should come down to some kind of resting zone, whether it's room temperature. You got something like this. It's a wonderful little trick. I highly recommend it if you got a grill big enough to build that little indirect heat zone. It works really well and helps these ribs come out really, really awesome. So any thoughts, questions here on our slow cooking process?
Well, I just asked the group, John, and I'll ask you, are you a beef rib guy or a pork rib guy? What's your preference?
Ooh. They're so different. I mean, I normally do pork. Pork's really available in North Carolina, but that's my go-to. I'd love to hear from the group what their kind of preference is.
Well, see, I'm a beef guy, so I'll eat both. Don't get me wrong. But if it's on the menu and you're going to ask me to choose, oh, my goodness.
Wish I'd passing that to you there, Brother Cheney.
Oh, what happened? I reached for it.
So,
all right, so Mike Shaw says, got a question real quick, though. Sorry, John. When you're cooking, at this lower temperature, how low is that heat? What are you trying to drop it down to?
So I have my grill right at 200 degrees, and I use thermometers to know what it is. I've got it down. I can get it exactly at 200 for a long cook. Now, I knew I was going to be putting them on early, working all day, and then having this webinar. Normally, I'd probably get it to 225, 250, maybe do a 6 or 7 hour slow cook. But look, if you want to put something on before you go to work and come back and have it be perfect, I go a little lower to 200. Seems to work great.
All right. Well, that's what Dave Wilson was asking. So I think you just answered his question. How many hours on the grill, which you did? How many hours? Now, how many hours wrapped? I'm not sure what he means by that question. But
yeah. So I only do 1 hour open air, getting the smoke flavor. Okay. And after 1 hour, I wrap it up tight and foil. Aaron Franklin uses butcher paper, which is a little hard to find. Aluminum foil, super easy. I like wrapping in foil.
John, you can't keep eating the product here. I haven't had dinner yet. I'm hungry. You're making me hungry.
So let's crank up the heat. Let's go to more of a medium heat and start introducing sides. I tell you, vegetables really go well cooking over high heat on a grill. One of the things that we really enjoy is cooking potatoes. Potatoes are super easy. Just wrap it up in foil. You can put some on if you want. You don't have to. We varied trying to put some oil and some salt or things. Or when we do a baked potato, I tell you what, I just wrap it in foil, put it right on there, let it go for an hour, a couple hours, and it's delicious. These little potatoes cook up really nice. These little guys, they cook up quicker. So these were on for about an hour, and I'll show you how just nice they get. I mean, if you can see it, I literally just crushing it with my fork. Super tender, really nice. They get really good when they're cooked well. I don't know if you can overcook potatoes. I don't know if I ever have, but it's definitely something that you want to cook longer than you think you should, and they really come out really nicely. So one of the fun vegetables to do on the grill here. Corn on the cob. Mm-hmm. Corn cooks great on the grill. You can do it in the stalks. You can take it off the stalks. So we shuck these. Sometimes we use like a skewer or something like that to cook it in. You can season with what you want. You can do some butter, oil, add on some salt, pepper. And I tell you what, some of the best corn you ever had. Just careful, don't cook it too high, too long. You might get popcorn. But highly recommend corn on the cob on the grill. Much better than boiling it in a pot.
Absolutely. John, when we do ours, and by the way, you know this about me, I get to benefit from what Christy cooks, but we cook ours in the shuck when we do that on the grill. So different ways to do it.
It comes out really good. Yeah, really, really good. So an easy one to show your clients if you're doing an event, easy one to wow some people at your maybe barbecue you're hosting for your immediate family or maybe some extended family. It's Memorial Day. So this chicken here, I'd say it had on for about 45 minutes. Chicken, you can crank up the heat on chicken. I really enjoy these master classes. I learned a lot about cooking. Thomas Keller has a great one. He cooks a whole chicken in the oven at 475 degrees. So pretty higher heat than most things that might typically be like 350 in the oven. So chicken can take some higher heat. I think with your higher heat meats, what you're really doing, you're cooking down a lot of the fat and the juices in there. And with any kind of poultry, you got to be careful. Salmonella poisoning is really common with any kind of poultry. So for food safety in general, if you ever worked at a restaurant, there's a rule of 40 and 40. So your refrigerator's below 40 degrees for a reason, because bacteria can't live. It's usually between 32 to 40 if your fridge, if you check the temp. And on the high side, you want to at least be cooking poultry past 140, typically like 160 is recommended. So these have been on for about 45 minutes. I did my simple Old Bay seasoning, salt, pepper, paprika. I did a little dash of barbecue sauce. You know, barbecue sauce is funny because it burns. There's a lot of sugar in there. So I put some on some pieces. So if you can see this piece here, you know, it's got a little char to it. Some people like some more char than others. So if you like it a little more charred, put some barbecue sauce on early in the process. It'll get the outside of the skin really charred up. Same with this. Look at this boneless chicken breast. You know, you can get it really charred up, and it's basically just the burning barbecue sauce on there. So that's a very easy one to cook. If you want to go up a stage from your common hamburgers and hot dogs, chicken cooks up great. Just make sure you cook it long enough. I definitely recommend some kind of upper deck, a little bit higher height from the direct flame, but you should be at maybe a medium high on your grill setting to cook those at. That's worked really well for me over the years. And there's so many different, parts of the chicken that are great. I like them all. I've cooked the whole chicken on this thing. We like the whole chicken legs. We do a lot, which will be the thigh and the leg together. For dark meat, thighs cook up great. I like chicken on the bone, so I like a breast on the bone, but just did a couple different kinds just to show you what's possible here. A great wow for your guest. Very easy to prep and super cheap. You know, that's another thing with a lot of these meals too. They don't have to be overly expensive if you're cooking on the grill. You can really eat pretty cheap. You know, we probably live like school teachers day to day and really don't spend that much money on food cooking at home. I've got some special stuff we'll show you that's not your everyday cheap stuff, but chicken's super cheap. You can feed your family really cheap. And I think when you're hosting a group, it's a great idea to have something like that that's not overly expensive, is not going to break the bank. So easy, I guess, medium heat type items. I think some other things that go well at medium heat is your vegetables. So I love doing vegetables right directly on there. Vegetables do really well at a higher heat. So I do a little dab of oil and a little bit of salt on my vegetables. So I'll do a little demonstration here with these just simple bell pepper cut up. Get a little oil on there. Get some salt going. You know, when salting anything, you want to go up high so you get a nice even distribution of the salt. And again, just direct on the grill. These babies will cook up in just a few minutes. I like to have it more on high for vegetables like this. They cook up really, really well, really quickly. So we'll get these guys going on here. Some other favorite vegetables we have. Highly recommend a Star Wars plate too. Food tastes better on it. From William's birthday.
What are you saying is the force is with you, John?
That's right. You know, you got to use the force sometimes in cooking. Asparagus, super easy one to do. on the grill. And this is my technique. I love these bins, these little aluminum tins. They're cheap. You get big packs at like Costco's or Sam's. You can wash them and reuse them. I just put a little oil in there, mix them up. Get a little salt going is great. If you want to go to the next level with any of your cooking, any really good French chef like Thomas Keller is going to talk about acid and talk about lemon. You do just a little bit of lemon on anything, it tastes great. Actually did that on this chicken here as well. So we'll pop a little asparagus on and brown that up. Really, any vegetables kind of cook up really well with this technique, kind of higher heat, direct on there. Again, they don't take long, maybe a few minutes, and you'll see how these bad boys look in just a minute here. So,
hey, John,
I'd love to hear
we got a question, if I can ask, about the chicken. How do you keep the chicken from sticking to the grill?
It's a great question.
So,
no one likes sticky chicken.
Yeah, I'd say two things there. I'd say one, your grill grates. You know, when you get your grates really seasoned, think about like grandma's cast iron pan, their skillet that they may have used. You know, when it gets really seasoned, things typically don't stick. If you're having food stick on your grill, I'd recommend doing like a little spray of something like olive oil or Pam or something like that before you put the meat down there. Because I hear you, if it's not really seasoned well and you put it on there, especially like an overcooked chicken breast that gets really dry, it's going to stick. So try doing that. The other thing, after you cook, leave some of that crap on there. You know, that really helps season. I leave whatever the heck's on there. When I'm done, I shut it off and I close it. And then when I heat up before the next cooking, like I did today, the grill was pretty nasty from last weekend. I turned it on high. I cooked everything off. And you know what? Then I scrubbed it down. So these grates are really been seasoned really, really well. So try and work them in, but spray in a little oil. Or you could also get a little paper towel and put some oil on it and just brush that on. That's another trick too, just to keep it, keep it moist and not have the sticky problem.
Yeah, well, it's good. You actually answered a question too about clean the grates, or do you? So that was John. Stop eating the food, man. Just cook. You're killing me.
Gosh, it's so good. So I'd love to hear what vegetables people like to cook on there. I've got some peppers, asparagus in a little bit. We're gonna really cook down some Brussels sprouts high heat. Tomatoes is one of my favorites. Oh my gosh, they're so good. We're gonna do some of that when we get over to the beef and cooking those. But gas grill, very, very versatile. Look, you could cook steaks and things on there. If I don't have a lot of time, I'll get this thing really hot. Make sure it's seasoned. Might rub a little oil on there if I have to. But I'll put on a piece of wood and cook steaks on here if I have to. They cook just fine. But I tell you, really want hot, real wood charcoal, hard lump charcoal. Oh my gosh, it gets so hot. The reason that steaks taste so good at a restaurant is they're usually cooking them in some kind of broiler that might get up to 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 degrees, and it just cooks down all the fat so quickly. And that's why a lot of these restaurants it tastes really great. Some of them, like some of Michael Mina's steakhouses, he's got one at Fontainebleau. I think he's got one in Nashville now. I think he's got a bourbon steak in that new JW Marriott. So he'll cook over a gas-driven grill, but he'll put real logs in there. So when you have one of his steaks, oh man, it tastes like it came off a wood fire, but it's getting a lot higher heat because of those logs that he's putting in there with the gas. So if you really want a great steak, try and find a way to crank up the heat. This probably maxes out at maybe 500 degrees, where I think this is probably in the probably 800 range, I guess, your typical charcoal. So a little bit closer to your restaurant quality char that we get here. So let me give
So
the
John,
vegetables a little
hey,
stir.
John, some of the vegetables as you're cooking there that I'm hearing: portobello mushroom, cauliflower, broccolini, zucchini. Some of the things you already talked about, like asparagus, corn. People are grilling some pineapple.
Ooh.
And we have a question too. Dave Hostetler wants to know: do you prefer lid open or closed on the gas grill for medium to high heat?
Okay, great question, Dave. Typically, high heat, you should be open. And I tell you why it prevents flare-ups. If you're cooking burgers or steaks that need to be high heat, that's fat dripping down on these grates, and you can get flare-ups or possibly a grease fire if you got a lot of junk on your grill. So they say you should have it open for high heat. I tell you what I do. I start it down when I cook something high heat, just so I can get more of this wood smoke flavor in there. I'll do maybe a minute, maybe 2 max, and then I'll open it up. And it gets a lot of that smoke flavor. Because remember, up till 75 degrees is where you'll get that wood flavor. As soon as it goes beyond that, you're not going to get any more. So that's a great trick. But as you saw, cooking the chicken, closed for like medium heat, I think chicken's fine closed. You can really get some nice wood flavor on chicken with it closed. But, yeah, burger, steaks, anything really, really hot, you want to leave it open just so you don't have any kind of fire going.
All right. Thanks, Dave, for that question. All right. So we got some vegetables cooking. We've talked about some high heat techniques. What about, maybe you talked about this, but is it the hard lump charcoal?
Yes, we're going to go there next. So
Okay.
Most people have those briquettes, right? I'm trying to think of the brand, the popular brand that makes the match light. Yeah, I mean, I remember that from when I was a kid, and there's a lot of like accelerants and stuff in those. It's really not good for you. So I would be really careful with cooking on that stuff. This is a little bit healthier because it's natural wood. It gets a lot hotter. And like I said, if you can cook down a real fire, that's the healthiest. I mean, that's the most natural thing there is. There's no accelerants in there. There's no, weird chemicals that are being put in the charcoal. So just be careful with those. So, yeah, there's some of the vegetables right there.
Hey, Kathleen.
I'm going to get, they say, hey, Kathleen. So, so you saw me, I think, start this up when we started. This stuff should probably cook longer than you think. The charcoal's really got to be, basically like red hot on top. I see a lot of times people will pour it out too soon, and when it's not properly cooked down, you get a lot of weird, nasty flavors. You'll get you'll get this like really burnt, strange sensation, and I learned that from using a smoker. If you have like a hot burning, fire, like when you first put a log on a fire and it starts really flaming, that's going to make your food taste like crap. The coals, the burnt down part, that's what you want to cook food on. You still get a nice wood flavor. So kind of same concept with charcoal. You want it fully cooked down all the way. I always give it a nice shake just to make sure it's fully done. This bad boy looks ready to roll. So I'm pretty safe. I'm definitely a pyro. We love burning fires here all the time, and I love cooking with this kind of stuff. But you got to be careful. I mean, look, all of us use our hands. We type all the time. You just got to be careful and protect yourself. This stuff's pretty dangerous. So I like putting charcoal on one side. That way you can kind of control the heat. So just like this concept of hot and indirect heat, I like having one side that's really, really hot with charcoal, and then another side I can move to. So you'll see here when I cook these steaks, if there's a flare-up or something like that, I could easily move it to the other side. So Weber makes, and by the way, I'm a massive fan of Weber products. These grills are old. These things are, I don't know, probably like 7, 8 years, something like that. I mean, they're in wonderful condition. I bought cheap ones. I bought other brands, and I've really seen some issues with the quality. But Weber's a great brand. They also make they'll make a little like metal container that will contain your charcoal into one side of the grill if you want. But I just pour it in, leave it open. I think it works great. So this one here, this is a fairly new grill grate. I usually get a new one every spring, kind of leading up to the summer. So I've only cooked on it a few times. So it's not going to be the best. It's probably highly likely to stick. So I'll show you what I do with some oil and a paper towel. Basically just kind of rub down where we're going to cook. And the first item I'm going to cook, it's been marinated. So it'll kind of help that initial part. But just getting a little paper towel like this, fold her up, give it a little dip in the oil like this, just like that, and then just give it a little rub on the grate. Just rub down where your food's going to go. I can already see the grates are glistening with the oil. The oil gets hot in there, and it'll cook down without sticking here, which is what we're looking for. So I'm going to get.
Hey, John, I got a quick question for you. Can I ask you a question? Salty salt from the Great Pacific Northwest there. If when you look at the equipment you have between the two grills there, what are you looking at spending if you want to go out and get like those grills right now?
Yeah, so these are cheap. You can get the regular kettle for $100. Maybe I think it's maybe $200 with this one with the table. This grill, the Weber, it's the Genesis 2 with 4 burners. I'd say it's probably in the $800 or $900 range. I think when it first came out, it was like $1,000 or $1,200. But you get sales for all these things. So I'd say $1,000 you're all in with super high quality stuff that still works great. 7 years later, I give this stuff probably a 10-year timeline of being usable. But that's probably the investment in lifespan here. Great question.
Probably a quarter of what you make on a new high value client is what you're saying, John.
There you go. Yeah. So I'm jamming on some Brussels sprouts. At a restaurant, you'll see these things really cooked down, really high heat and almost blackened. So we're going to kind of get that effect and leave those bad boys cooking here. So any questions before we go to steak?
No, I think so far we're up to speed. It looks like Sherry English is a value shopper here. She got a smaller version of John's Weber grill for $450. So
there you go. Yeah. Look, I got a family of 4. If you're not, cooking, and we like to have our, family in town over when it's safe for holidays, and I'll cook for 10, 20 people. So I like having this big thing. You don't always need that. There's really nice ones like Sherry got that are awesome, that'll work just as well. So any other questions before we dive into probably the tip of the night?
No, I think we're good, man.
Okay.
You're going well.
Wait,
are these the steaks? Wait a minute, though. Are these the steaks that you said you're going to cook and send to me?
I don't know. I'll talk to Christy about that. She can probably cook up a good steak there. But one day when we all hang out again, we'll cook some steaks together.
Absolutely.
So, best tip. These guys right here, skirt steaks. They're super cheap. They taste awesome. If you want to wow a big crowd, get these bad boys. So if you're cooking for family, extended family, friends, having a Memorial Day cookout, 4th of July cookout, you want to give some good tips to your clients, these things are great. There's just a nice amount of, marbling or fat. And look, you want fat in beef. That's what makes it taste good, like a piece of bacon does. You just got to cook it down enough so it's not chewy. But skirt steak, if you can find it, oh my gosh, it is so great. Really, really cheap. It would be about a quarter of the price of a regular steak. So I like marinating these, and I did Worcestershire sauce. I did pepper. I did some rosemary and some garlic. So it's got a really nice flavor. Always salt right before you cook. And when you're salting before cooking, you'll see this on any cooking show, watching a chef. It seems like they're putting on a lot of salt, but you got to remember, cooking on really high heat like this, the salt's going to burn off. So you want to get that flavor in there. If you put too little, there's not going to really be any kind of salt flavor. Salt, acid are really important flavors in your cooking. So these guys are really thin. They're pretty small. They cook up pretty quick. I mean, it's maybe a couple of minutes aside, and these bad boys are ready to go. I usually do like 3 minutes and 2 minutes for these, and they cook up pretty nice. I like salting once I put them on. I salt the other side and let that kind of settle in here. So you can see I got them right over the hottest part of the grill. I mean, it hurts to put my hand over it right now. That baby's raging at least 800 plus degrees right now. Pretty hot. So this cooks up just wonderful. And one of my favorite things with all this stuff is all this stuff warms up great. I cook like this most weekends, and then we eat on it all week. So this warms up great. We'll do it in for Cinco de Mayo. We did a Taco Tuesday, and I cooked some of these and some chicken on the weekend before. And we cut up a bell pepper. We put in the chicken. We put in the marinated skirt steak that I already grilled. And within about 3 minutes, we had an awesome meal and just put it in some tortillas, and came out wonderful. So
Johnny,
this stuff is ripping.
What kind of salt are you using? Kosher salt, Mediterranean sea salt, coarse?
Great question. Yeah, I'm a kosher salt guy. You can get it at any grocery store. What's it, Morton's is that the salt company, I think. They'll have a box of it anywhere. That's what a lot of chefs use. My pepper, this pepper mill is great. Instead of twisting, this one kind of this motion to crack the pepper. I like Kelacheri peppers. They got a little more robust flavor. I like really flavorful things. And then the paprika I like smoked sweet paprika. Goes really well. Look, any kind of paprika, any kind of pepper works really well, but you definitely don't want your like iodized table salt is not great. There's some stuff in that too, some chemicals and things that are not ideal that we don't want to be eating. So kosher, pretty natural. Sea salt's great. I have a friend one time got me into gray salt. Is really interesting to do on steaks. It really crust up. So if you like a real heavy crust on something you're cooking, like a steak, something high heat, those crust up really awesome and taste really good. And gosh, these things are just about done. They've really been incinerated here by this high heat. And we'll shift to some of the bigger pieces of meat here. I got a nice array of some steaks that I'll talk about next year, but any other questions or chat?
Yeah, we got Mike Shaw out of the great North state of Minnesota. Says, what about wood pellet grills like a Memphis?
Yeah, so those are cool, man. They're really up and coming because it's easy. I mean, you got to be pretty crazy and insane like me to cook down a real fire for hours and rake the coals over. It's a lot of effort that most people aren't willing to do. A regular smoker like this guy, it's an all-day endeavor, and you got to be on there working the fire and putting logs in. I mean, it's got to be like an all-day commitment. I only do it a couple times a year. So these wood pellet smokers are pretty easy. They allow you to really get that kind of smoked flavor, the same concept. I wouldn't say it's not the same quality food as using real wood, but it's pretty darn close, and it's pretty darn easy. So I think from a time efficiency standpoint and, keeping it simple, those pellets work really good. A lot of them have like a little box on the side you fire in, and it's pretty awesome. So, here's a look at the skirt steaks all cooked down. They're totally amazing. They're really, really amazing there. So that'll be dinner one of the next couple of nights. So our final couple of things, these last kind of vegetables, these Brussels sprouts are getting there. We really want them black. Let me get them over the hottest part. Seems to be right here. Usually wherever your gas plugs in, whether you got natural gas hookup or you got these propane tanks, whatever side that's on is always going to be the hottest side of your grill. So even if you have all of them on high, that spot on here comes in on this side. That's always going to be the hottest. So definitely put your high heat things there. Okay, steaks. The 3 most common cuts. I feel like I'm at like Morton's or nice steakhouse here. So you've got your filet mignon, you've got a New York strip, and you've got a ribeye. This part of the ribeye is one of my favorites. This is the eye of the ribeye. This decal around the outside is just some of the neatest, most tender kind of steak there is. I'm really lucky. We've got this nice store called Fresh Market. Dave Hostetler probably has some of those. It's based out of North Carolina, but they're around. They're in Florida. They're all kind of throughout the South and the Southeast. It's prime quality. They have tons of sales weekly. Sometimes I can get prime New York strip for $12.99 a pound, which is crazy. It's like half price what a lower quality like Choice or Premium might be. But prime's the top 1% quality. And the difference in quality, like if you look at this New York strip, there's a lot of small speckles of fat. If you get your lower quality grocery store meat, you're going to see like bright red, barely any speckles. If there is any, it's going to be a real tough, thick, very bright white piece. And it's got a real bright, probably piece of fat around it. And that's that. If you've ever had steak that's really hard to chew, look, animals are bred for efficiency now. Most cows are 18 months only when they're slaughtered for your typical grocery store meat. And, that's just something to watch out for, just your quality. I think, look, your skirt steak doesn't need that. It's kind of cut off at the top of the ribs. But these things, if you're going to do it, you might as well do it. Get some good quality in here. I'm going to salt these bad boys up and really get them going. If you like a lot of char, you can hit a little bit of oil on these and brush a little bit of oil on there if you like that. Otherwise, just salt creates a nice crust on these. And I'm going to pop them on here. Medium rare is the expected kind of what every chef would recommend you cook your steaks to. So you probably want to cook them to about 120 degrees. I was at a really, really nice steakhouse once and got a tour of the kitchen, and I saw a guy using one of these, a little digital thermometer, and he was sticking in the sides of the steaks to be 100% sure that it was going to be the right temperature. And I thought that was so clever, and we should all be doing that if we want to get the temperature that we want. Because I've failed so many times cooking. I cook a lot. I'm cooking twice a week at least out here. I've been doing it I've been really into grilling, I'd say about 10 years. I've been really going down this rabbit hole. I've messed up so many times. And the worst is you sit down to a great meal, all the sides are all ready at the same time, and the steak's like super rare. It's just not ready on the inside. So use a thermometer. It's great. I use it too. If you notice me, I'd used it for the chicken just to make sure it was 100%, that it was at least 160, which it was. Now, I can kind of predict by time how long stuff's going to take. With as hot as that is, I'm probably looking at like 5 minutes and 3 minutes. Now what's going to happen, some of this fat's going to flare up and I'm going to have to move it around. Ideally, you want it to stay there as long as possible, but we're probably going to have to move this ribeye here. It's got a lot of fat and it's flaring up a lot. That flared up flavor is not very good. You don't want to have that in your food. So I find you got to move those a little bit.
Hey, John, did you say 3 to 5 minutes? Is that for each side, or is that total?
So first side is always longer. I usually do 5 minutes on the first side, and then only about 3 minutes for the second side. Now, that's on this. That's on super hot charcoal. If I'm cooking on here, there's a bunch of charts on the internet that are really helpful. And some of these charts will give you, I guess they'll kind of give you a guide of what you should be doing. I would say you're probably like 8 minutes and 6 minutes for medium rare on a gas grill, direct on high heat for, like an 1.5 inch stick. If you're dealing with a thinner steak, it's going to be much quicker. You're probably in the 5 and 3 zone. So these guys are pretty thick. That fillet is probably 2 inches. The others are about 1.5 inches. So that's typically the timing. But the charts will give you kind of a recommended time, and I think that's a great guide to start with. That really helped me in the beginning when I started grilling, was at least to have some of these things to go by. As I got better, I didn't need it as much. I just kind of, used the force and could kind of tell what was going to take how long. But that's some thoughts there. Forgot about the seafood. I'm going to jam that on with the steaks here. Again, another one that's great for super high heat. My super simple seasoning, a little lemon, a little salt, pepper, a little paprika. I love cod. It's easy fish. If kids like it, not a real fishy flavor at all. Grills up super, super easy. So, again, you can pop it on a grill like this. If you can hear these guys cooking, the Brussels sprouts, they're starting to get hot. I like to really incinerate fish and cook it very high heat very quickly, just like I would vegetables. Cook fish pretty similar to vegetables. And you can close these up and kind of steam it if you want. I usually do it open because I like a little of that wood flavor in the fish. So those go really great. I prepared another super simple thing here of a fun one that you could do at your events. Is skewer a little shrimp. You can get these little wood things at a grocery store, or I get pretty much everything on Amazon. I found some on Amazon are really good. Now look, this is all I do. I do a little bit of lemon, and bam, fire them on there. They really don't need much at all. Shrimp is great. It's very versatile, very easy. Fish in general cooks pretty quick. It's pretty easy to deal with. Steak's probably one of your more difficult ones to cook. It's difficult to cook well, or I should say to cook with quality. We never want to cook them well done, but it is a challenge to cook those down. So we're probably at the flipping point here, these guys. I can just tell. I'll show you a nice char on this bad boy as we're wrapping up. You really get a nice high heat sear with the salt on there. It really cooks up really well. And this kind of hard lump charcoal, massive difference compared to your, more your gas grill kind of thing. So as you wrap up here, any final questions here or any chat box items to cover?
Johnny, did you ever do a reverse sear? It was popular a couple of years ago. Have you done that to caramelize the fat around, say, like a big brontosaurus ribeye type thing?
I only have for a big mega steak like that. I think one time we got a one of those big tomahawk steaks with the bone sticking out. It was huge. So I tried it on that. It was pretty good. It's all what you have access to and what you use. I mean, a regular steak like these guys is what I typically use. They cook up so quickly and so great. I don't really have access to some of those mega ones. But I tell you, if you're hosting a large group, another great way to have a lot of people fed, with one big piece of meat. I think that's pretty cool. Certainly something to check out.
John, we got a question from Brittany. Tips for starting charcoal and avoiding match light and lighter fluid. So how are you getting the charcoal going without that?
So this little device here. Let me get my other one that doesn't have hot charcoal in it. Charcoal chimney. They're probably about $20 at a Lowe's, Home Depot. I get them on Amazon. You put some paper in the bottom, like newspaper. If you get a paper bag at a store, Amazon boxes work great. The cardboard. You put that in the bottom. Put it down and load your charcoal in. What's that here? You're saying?
Comp statement.
Yeah, comp statement. Yeah, me and Travis's are super long. And so you light the paper, cardboard, whatever it's going to be, and you just need it to burn long enough to get things going. I've tried like paper towels and stuff like that. It burns too quickly. So you need enough paper, enough something to get it started. There's some like fire starter things you can use. I don't know. I think they're crap. I just save paper bags if I ever get one. I got a bunch of them in this cabinet here, and to pull them out, jam them in there, it lights them up really, really great. So that I highly it's the best $20 you ever spend. This thing's probably as old as my kids. They work great. They last a very long time, but it's a great way to get your charcoal super hot so you can avoid the lighter fluid and that terrible flavor you get in your food.
Yep. Well, John, this has been awesome. I'm so hungry right now.
Yeah.
I think I'll have to drink another bourbon. I'm so hungry.
Yeah.
Well, you guys can see, one of the things that I admire about John is he gets passionate about things. And Drew, you and I, do you remember when he had those, well, he's done it in front of me multiple times, food orgasms?
Oh, yeah.
Where were we? We were at that restaurant in California.
Yes, we were in Napa.
French Laundry.
At the French Laundry.
Yeah.
French Laundry. And
it reminded me of being at the Blues Brothers when they come to the Chez Paul and ask the people to buy the little children. People were asking to move away from our table.
They were. We were a table of 6. We thought we were a table of 20. And but I always loved traveling with John because I don't have to worry about how well we're going to eat. That doesn't mean it's always expensive. But he just has this great passion towards food. That's why he and my wife get along very well. They're very much foodies.
My foodie buddy.
Always that would take good care of us. So, John, thank you for bringing us into your backyard, your own little cooking domain.
Thank Kathleen as well.
Yeah, tell Kathleen we said hello.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thanks, boys.
Assistant chef. And we hope that you guys are doing some things like this with your clients, whether it's a cooking class. We've done the bourbon. We've had a concert. We've had a master wine sommelier. Next week, we've got a comedian coming. I'm really super excited about Cyrus. I interviewed him last week and gave him some dirt on some people, including myself. So I'm really excited about having him next week. And then we'll get back to some best practices. And then, like I said, we're probably going to do another bourbon tasting, 4 different bourbons, and another Scotch tasting. So, John, introduce your other assistant here.
Hey, this is Big William. William, how old did you just turn? 10. Just turned 10 last month. Star Wars themed birthday.
All right, William, good to see you.
James here. James is 13. He's my other grill. Hey, I highly recommend child labor if you have access to it. It's good. It's good for these guys to learn how to cook too. They're involved in every meal. They do cooking. Sometimes we'll send James out and he'll cook the meal for us, but it's really important for them to learn these life skills. So every meal we cook, it's a family effort. Everyone has a job, and definitely good to get these guys cooking, man. They're going to be on their own one day. They got to do it on their own sometime, hopefully for their family.
There we go. Well, thank you, Randall family. Thank you, D2 community. It was great being with you tonight. Cheers to you. Hey, keep being you. Fight the good fight out there. Be there for your clients. We absolutely just are honored to be a part of your life and your practice to help you on your financial planning journey. We'll catch you next week when we have our comedian, Cyrus, at 5 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Eastern. Have a good night.
Take care.